He kicked his empty cup across the pavement and shouted, "I exist too." People startled and hurried past him on Maple Street. Eli Turner tightened his torn jacket and stared at the glass doors of Sunrise Cafe as warm air escaped every time someone walked out. The smell of coffee felt like a memory from another life. "Another morning," he whispered. "Another crowd that doesn't see me. 8 months of sitting in the same spot. 8 months of being invisible." A man slowed down in front of him. Eli lifted his head quickly. "Sir, could you?" The man shook his head and walked away. Eli laughed to himself. "I didn't even finish asking." He pressed his palms to his face. "I used to matter," he said quietly. "I used to be someone." A shadow stopped in front of him. "Why do you sit here every day?" a calm voice asked. Eli looked up. "Because this street tolerates me," he replied. "And people don't." The man crouched beside him instead of giving money. "What do you see here all day?" Eli hesitated. "Everyone. Office workers. Tourists. Mothers rushing. Angry men. Tired women." The man smiled. "So you observe." "I survive," Eli snapped. "Observation won't save me." The man pulled out a small notebook and placed it in Eli's hands. "My name is Jonathan Reed. I don't want to give you money. I want to give you a task." Eli stared. "A task? Write down what you notice tomorrow. Who passes? When they pass. What they struggle with. 1 page. I'll pay you $50. Eli's voice cracked. "Why would you trust me?" Jonathan stood. "Because this street made you an expert." Eli looked at the notebook as Jonathan walked away. For the first time in months, he didn't feel invisible that night. He clutched the notebook to his chest like it was something fragile and alive. "Who am I kidding?" he whispered to the darkness. "I can't even fix my own life. Now I'm supposed to write reports." Morning came fast. The sun rose over Maple Street, and Eli took his usual place near Sunrise Cafe. He opened the notebook with trembling fingers. A woman rushed past him, speaking angrily into her phone. He wrote, 7:12 a.m., stressed, late for work. A group of students laughed loudly. 7:40 a.m., young people buy drinks but complain about the long line. By noon, his page was full. He started listening more closely. A man stopped near him and sighed. "Every morning the line is too slow." Eli looked up. "What would make it faster?" The man blinked. "More staff before 9 a.m. Eli wrote it down. Another woman dropped her bag and groaned. "I hate walking this block. No shade. No place to sit." Eli hesitated, then asked, "What would help?" "Even 1 bench," she said. He wrote that too. By evening, his head was buzzing with words and ideas. When Jonathan returned, Eli stood up quickly. "I did it," Eli said, holding out the notebook. "I don't know if it's good enough." Jonathan flipped through the pages. His eyebrows rose. "You spoke to people?" Jonathan asked. Eli swallowed. "I was scared. They looked at me like I wasn't supposed to talk." Jonathan smiled slowly. "But you did." "I had to," Eli said. "You said observe. So I listened." Jonathan closed the notebook. "This is better than I expected." Eli's chest tightened. "So am I fired already?" Jonathan laughed. "No. You're hired for another task." Eli froze. "Another?" "Yes. Tomorrow. Ask people what would make their mornings easier. I'll pay you more." Eli's voice shook. "You mean? I'm useful." Jonathan met his eyes. "You always were. You just forgot." Eli looked down at his hands. They were dirty, but for the first time, they felt important. The next morning, Eli stood in his spot with his notebook pressed against his chest. His heart pounded louder than the traffic. "Talk to them," he told himself. "Just talk." A man in a blue jacket stopped near him to check his phone. Eli swallowed hard. "Excuse me, sir, can I ask you something?" The man frowned. "Why?" "I'm collecting ideas," Eli said quickly. "What would make your morning easier?" The man hesitated, then sighed. "Honestly, a cheaper coffee. Everything's too expensive." Eli nodded and wrote it down. "Thank you." When the man walked away, Eli whispered, "He answered me." A woman with tired eyes passed next. Eli forced himself to speak again. "Ma'am, what's the hardest part of your morning?" She looked surprised. "Walking 3 blocks with no restroom nearby," she said. "It's awful." Eli wrote it down. His hands were shaking, but his voice grew stronger with each question. By midday, he was no longer afraid. A young worker snapped, "Why are you asking me this?" Eli lifted his notebook. "Because someone wants to make this street better." The worker paused. "Then tell them to open the cafe earlier. Everyone's late because of that line." Eli smiled. "I will. By sunset." His page was full again. But something else had changed. People were looking at him differently. One man said, "You're not like the others out here." Eli replied softly, "I'm not just sitting anymore." When Jonathan returned, Eli stood tall. "I talked to them. All of them." Jonathan read the notes slowly. "You gathered real information," he said. "You did what professionals do." Eli's eyes filled with tears. "Professionals don't sleep on cardboard." Jonathan placed money in his hand. "Professionals solve problems. And today, so did you." Eli looked at the bills and whispered, "I didn't beg for this." Jonathan smiled. "You earned it." Eli felt something break inside him, not into pieces, but open. "I can do this again," he said. Jonathan nodded. "Tomorrow, you will." Eli began to wake before sunrise, not because of hunger, but because of purpose. He folded his blanket, tucked his notebook under his arm, and took his place near Sunrise Cafe like a man reporting for duty. A voice inside him whispered, "You don't belong here." Another voice answered, "You belong to this work." That morning, a woman stopped in front of him. "Are you the one asking questions?" Eli nodded slowly. "Yes, ma'am." She crossed her arms. "Why?" "Because people deserve better mornings," he said. "And I can help collect their voices." She studied him for a long second, then said, "Tell them the trash cans overflow every day. It smells. No one cares." Eli wrote it down carefully. "Thank you for telling me." An older man laughed as he passed. "So now you're a reporter?" Eli smiled nervously. "Something like that." By noon, his confidence was growing. He stood straighter. His voice no longer shook. A group of teenagers mocked him. "Look, the homeless man thinks he's important." Eli felt his chest tighten. For a moment, the old shame returned. Then he opened his notebook and said quietly, "I am important. I'm working." They fell silent and walked away. When Jonathan arrived, Eli didn't rush toward him like before. He waited. Jonathan flipped through the pages and nodded slowly. "You're changing," he said. Eli swallowed. "I still sleep outside." "Yes," Jonathan replied. "But you don't live like someone who has given up." Eli whispered, "I don't feel broken today." Jonathan placed more money in his hand. "Next week, I want you to come to my office and explain this yourself." Eli froze. "Your office?" "Yes. You will present this information to my team." "I don't belong in offices," Eli said. Jonathan leaned closer. "You belong wherever your value takes you." That night, Eli stood under a streetlight and stared at his reflection in a shop window. For the first time in months, he didn't see a homeless man. He saw a man with a mission. Eli stood outside Jonathan's office building with his notebook clutched in both hands. The glass doors reflected a man he barely recognized. Clean shirt Jonathan had bought him, hair combed for the first time in months, eyes filled with fear and fire at the same time. "I can't do this," Eli whispered. "They'll laugh at me." Jonathan placed a firm hand on his shoulder. "You already walked into harder places than this. You walked into hopelessness and came out with work." Inside, people stared. Suits, laptops, coffee cups that didn't come from donations. A woman at the table frowned. "Who is he?" Jonathan replied calmly. "He is the one who knows Maple Street better than any of us." Eli's throat tightened. I wrote what people told me." "Say it," Jonathan urged. Eli opened the notebook with shaking fingers. "People hate the long line. They want shade. They want a bench. They want trash cans emptied. They want the cafe to open earlier." Silence filled the room. A man leaned forward. "You collected this yourself?" "Yes," Eli said. "Every morning. I asked them." Another woman whispered, "These are things our surveys missed." Jonathan smiled. "Because none of you live there." Eli felt heat rush to his face. "I used to think I had nothing to give. Now, I think I see things others don't." The room changed. Faces softened. One man said, "We can redesign the storefront with this." Another added, "This could increase customers." Eli's chest rose and fell fast. "So, I helped." Jonathan nodded. "You helped a business. And you helped yourself." After the meeting, Jonathan handed Eli a card. "Part-time job. $15 an hour." Eli stared. "A job? A real one," Jonathan said. Eli's voice broke. "I don't have to beg anymore." Jonathan replied quietly, "You don't have to disappear anymore." That night, Eli lay on his blanket under the stars, holding the card like treasure. "I matter," he whispered. 3 months later, Maple Street no longer looked the same to Eli. He no longer sat with an empty cup. He stood with a notebook and a purpose. His clothes were clean. His face was brighter. A small phone rested in his pocket. At night, he slept in a shelter instead of under cold concrete. One morning, as he stood near Sunrise Cafe, a familiar voice spoke behind him. "You don't sit there anymore." Eli turned and saw a thin man holding a cardboard sign. The man's eyes were tired. His shoulders were heavy. "I used to," Eli said softly. "That place almost swallowed me." The man laughed bitterly. "This street swallows everyone." Eli reached into his bag and pulled out a small notebook and a pen. He pressed them into the man's hand. "Write what you see," Eli said. "Ask people questions. Listen to them." The man frowned. "Why?" "Because someone once did that for me," Eli replied. "And it saved my life." The man's voice trembled. "You think I can be something more?" Eli looked at him and said, "You already are. You just haven't used it yet." Later that day, Eli met Jonathan again. "I gave him a notebook," Eli said. Jonathan smiled. Then the circle continues. Eli walked back to his spot on Maple Street and watched people rush by. He no longer felt invisible. He felt connected. Inside him, something had shifted forever. He was not broken. He was capable. He was valuable. The same street that once reminded him of everything he had lost had become the place where he found himself again. And maybe, somewhere watching this story right now, someone feels invisible too. If that's you, remember this. Your situation does not define your worth. Your action does. If this story moved you, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment below what part touched your heart the most. Share this story with someone who needs hope today. Because sometimes, all it takes to change a life is one question, one notebook, and one chance.